Have you ever wondered why some women, especially older women, give off this mysterious vibe like they want to be approached, but they'll never admit it? You notice the subtle eye contact, the slight smile, the way she positions herself, but you're not sure if it's in your head or if she's really inviting you in. Here's the reality most men don't know. Older women often won't make the first move, but they will send signals that are almost invisible to the untrained eye. If you don't recognize them, you'll miss opportunities that could have changed your life. And today I'm going to reveal the 9 undeniable signs older women want you to approach them and exactly what to do once you spot them. But before we get into the signs, let me tell you why this matters. See, younger men often make 2 mistakes with older women. They either assume she's completely out of reach, or they think being bold and over the top will impress her. Both are wrong. Older women are more refined. They communicate interest with subtler cues, almost like a secret code. If you learn to read it, you'll have an advantage most men will never understand. So let's break down these 9 powerful signs one by one. Sign 1. Prolonged eye contact that feels different. Eye contact is powerful. It's silent and visible, but louder than any words she could say. And here's the thing. When an older woman wants to be approached, her eye contact will feel different. It's not the quick, casual glance you get when someone looks up from their phone. It's not the polite acknowledgement strangers give on a train. No, it's heavier, intentional, and it lingers just long enough to spark a question in your mind. Was that just eye contact or was it an invitation? Let me paint the picture. Imagine you're in a cafe in New York sitting by the window. You're sipping your coffee, scrolling through your phone when you notice her. She's across the room, well-dressed, poised, perhaps in her late 30s or early 40s. She looks at you, not once, not twice, but again and again, and every time your eyes meet, she holds it a second longer than necessary. Then she breaks it with a subtle smile before turning back to her book. That's not random. That's deliberate. See, psychologically, older women are sharper than younger ones. They've lived through enough to know how to control the room without saying a word. And because they often prefer a man to take the lead, they use their eyes as the first test. That prolonged glance is her way of saying, I've noticed you. Now, will you notice me back? Now, most men mess this up in 2 ways. The first type of man ignores it completely, convinced she was just looking around or that he's reading too much into it. The second type of man panics. He stares back too intensely, or he rushes over nervously, breaking the very tension she was trying to create. Both approaches kill the attraction instantly. The right move? Controlled awareness. Hold her gaze just a fraction, longer than you normally would. Not in a creepy, unblinking way, but in a calm, masculine way that says, I see you, and I'm comfortable with this moment. Then allow yourself to smile slightly before looking away. What you're doing here is mirroring her signal without overplaying it. You're showing her that you understood the code, and that you're confident enough not to jump like a nervous boy. Think of it like this. Older women use eye contact as a chess move. They're setting the board. If you look away too quickly, you've surrendered. If you stare too hard, you've overplayed. But if you meet her eyes with confidence, hold, and release, you've just made the perfect move back. And trust me, that exchange will make her even more curious about you. Here's a real example from London. A man named James was at a train station, waiting for the evening tube. Across from him stood a woman in her 40s holding a novel. She looked at him once, then again, then again. Each time her gaze lasted just a little longer. James noticed, but instead of reacting, he mirrored her with steady calm. Eventually, she gave him a half smile, that small curve of the lips that says, yes, I want you to approach. James walked over, casually asked her about the book she was reading, and within minutes they were lost in conversation. That moment started with nothing more than prolonged eye contact. Here's the truth. When an older woman wants you to approach, her eyes will speak before her mouth does. And if you learn to decode that signal, you'll open doors that most men never even realize exist. Sign 2. The playful smile and lip movement. Now let's talk about the smile, not just any smile, but the playful smile. When an older woman is interested in being approached, her smile will be different. It won't be the polite, automatic grin she gives a cashier. It won't be the forced smile she wears at work. No, this smile is slower, softer, almost teasing. And sometimes it comes with an extra detail, a bite of the lip, a quick touch of her mouth, or the subtle moistening of her lips. Imagine you're in Los Angeles, standing at the bar of a rooftop lounge. Across the room, you catch her eye. At first, it's just a glance. Then it happens, she smiles. Not wide, not loud, but a slow, deliberate curve of her lips. The kind of smile that lingers even after she's looked away. Maybe she tilts her head slightly. Maybe she plays with her glass. Maybe she bites her lip for just a second. These are not random gestures. These are signals. Here's the psychology behind it. Women, especially older ones, use the smile as a safe invitation. Unlike men, they're not likely to walk across the room and introduce themselves outright. But a playful smile? That's her way of lowering the wall. It's her saying, if you come over, I won't reject you. In fact, I want you to. The mistake most men make here is overthinking. They see the smile, then convince themselves it meant nothing. Or worse, they misinterpret it as a green light to rush over with desperate energy. But here's the reality. The smile is an opening, not a guarantee. Your job is to respond in kind, not too much, not too little. The best response? Mirror her playfulness. If she smiles slowly, smile back slowly. If she bites her lip, hold her gaze for a second, then smile with calm confidence. What you're doing is matching her energy, showing that you're socially aware enough to catch the signal and masculine enough to respond, without being needy. Here's a true story from Sydney. A man named Daniel was at a wine bar. A woman across the counter smiled at him 3 times in the span of 10 minutes. Each time it was subtle, almost hidden, but it was there. Daniel didn't rush. He smiled back, took his time, then finally approached with a situational opener. That bottle you picked, I've been debating it all night. Any good? She laughed, responded warmly, and the conversation flowed. The smile had opened the door. Daniel simply had the awareness to walk through it. What makes the playful smile so powerful is that it bypasses logic and goes straight to emotion. When a woman smiles at you like that, she's saying, I've already decided you're worth noticing. That's why it feels different, almost electric. Remember this, older women aren't careless with their smiles. If she sends one your way, it means something. And if it comes with lip movement, a bite, a lick, or even a playful touch that's not just interest, that's attraction. The lesson? Don't miss the smile. Don't dismiss it as coincidence. And above all, don't respond with nervous energy. Calm, confident playfulness is all it takes. Smile back, take your time, then approach naturally. Because in that moment, she's already invited you in, you just have to accept. Sign 3. Positioning herself closer to you. Older women rarely take random actions in social spaces. They're deliberate, intentional, and aware of how they move. That's why when an older woman positions herself closer to you, shifting to the seat next to yours at a cafe in Manchester, choosing the bar stool beside you in New York, or moving into your orbit at a rooftop lounge in Sydney, it's not an accident. It's a sign. Here's the key. Women create proximity when they want to be approached. A woman in her 20s might giggle, play with her hair, or send obvious signals. But an older woman with her experience prefers subtlety. She'll simply place herself where you can notice her, without ever needing to say a word. Let me give you an example. Daniel was in Los Angeles at a rooftop bar with a group of friends. Across the lounge, he noticed a woman in her late 30s. At first, she was sitting with her own group, a few tables away. But over the course of 30 minutes, she shifted. First, she walked by the bar while he was ordering a drink. Then she leaned against the counter just a few feet away. Finally, she pulled a stool and sat at the table directly beside his. Daniel thought nothing of it, assuming she was just moving around for comfort. But here's what really happened. She was strategically putting herself in his path, and the man who recognized it, not Daniel, but another confident guy in the same lounge, approached her with a casual, situational opener. Within minutes, she was laughing at his jokes. This is the lesson. When an older woman moves herself into your proximity repeatedly, she's giving you an opening. She may not say, come talk to me, but her body placement is communicating exactly that. The psychology behind it is simple. Older women aren't looking to waste time. If she doesn't want to interact with you, she'll stay in her corner. But if she sees something in you, your presence, your energy, your confidence, she'll create the space for you to approach. It's safe for her. If you pick up on it, you win. If you don't, she can retreat without risk. Here's how to respond. Don't immediately pounce. Notice the pattern first. If she comes closer once, it might be coincidence. Twice, maybe still chance. But 3 times? That's intentional. At that point, all you need is a calm situational remark. It could be as simple as, funny how this spot seems to attract the best view, or I swear, everyone ends up in this corner. Eventually. The goal isn't to impress with lines. It's to acknowledge her presence and give her the opening she's already invited. Think about it, older women understand social environments better than most men. They're not clumsy with their movements. If she places herself near you, she's already saying, I'm giving you a chance. And the man who acts with calm awareness will be the one she rewards with her attention. Sign 4. Her body language opens up around you. One of the clearest yet most overlooked signals that an older woman wants to be approached is her body language. Pay attention because her body often reveals what her words never will. When a woman isn't interested, her body closes itself off. She'll cross her arms, angle her body away, keep a bag or phone as a barrier. But when she is interested, she opens. And with older women, this openness is intentional. It's her way of lowering the drawbridge without ever having to speak. Imagine you're in Toronto at a bookstore. You're scanning through novels and a woman nearby begins to adjust her posture. Instead of facing the shelves directly, she turns her shoulders slightly toward you. She uncrosses her arms, shifts her stance so her feet point in your direction, and moves her bag from between you to her other side. These may look like random adjustments, but in reality they're signals she's inviting your presence. The psychology is fascinating. Humans instinctively protect themselves when uncomfortable. We cross arms, create barriers, or turn away. But when we feel safe and open, we expose vulnerable areas, the neck, the torso, the face. An older woman knows this instinctively. If she's turning her body toward you, tilting her head, or leaning slightly into your space, it's not just casual posture. It's a subconscious green light. I'll give you an example from London. Michael was at a cafe, sitting at a table with his laptop. A woman in her 40s sat nearby, facing away at first. Over the next 15 minutes, her body language shifted. She uncrossed her arms, angled her shoulders toward him, and even leaned her elbow on the table closest to him. Michael noticed, and instead of ignoring it, he seized the chance. He casually commented on the book she had set down, asking, "I've heard great things about that author. Is it worth picking up?" She smiled instantly, her body leaning even closer. From there, conversation flowed naturally. The mistake most men make is misreading body language as just being friendly. But friendliness and openness are different. Friendly can be polite. Openness is intentional. And older women are masters of using their bodies to communicate subtle attraction. So what's the move when you notice her open body language? Approach slowly, matching her energy. If her posture is relaxed, your energy should be calm. If she's leaning in slightly, move in with confidence, but don't crowd her. Respect the space while acknowledging the signal. The worst thing you can do is rush in nervously, breaking the natural rhythm she's creating. Here's the bottom line. When an older woman's body language shifts from closed to open, it's not an accident. She's silently telling you, I want to be approached, but I want you to do it the right way. Learn to read it, and you'll stand apart from every man who never noticed the signs. Sign 5. She initiates small talk or asks random questions. Older women don't waste words. They're not going to start random conversations with just anyone unless there's a reason. That's why when she initiates small talk, asking about the weather, the menu, the Wi-Fi, or even something as simple as the time, you should recognize it for what it is. A door being left slightly open for you to step through. Think about this. In Manchester, James was at a coffee shop one rainy morning. He sat by the window working on his laptop when a woman in her late 30s approached the counter near him. After ordering, she glanced his way and said, "Excuse me, do you know if the Wi-Fi here is usually this slow?" It was a soft entry, a simple question. James, nervous and distracted, barely looked up and muttered, "Yeah, it's always bad." She smiled politely, went back to her seat, and the moment was gone. 10 minutes later, another man in the cafe took that same opening. He joked, "It's always like this, almost like they want us to actually read books instead of being online." She laughed, leaned in, and the spark ignited. That's the difference. One man brushed off the signal, the other expanded it. Here's the psychology. Women, especially older women, have mastered the art of safe testing. She won't ask, "Are you single?" or "Do you want to talk to me?" Instead, she'll make a soft, socially acceptable question. If you fail to recognize it, she loses nothing. She can pull back gracefully, and no one's embarrassed. But if you catch it and expand, you've unlocked the door she left open. The truth is, older women aren't looking for one-word answers. They're looking for engagement. If she says, "This coffee is stronger than I expected," don't just nod and agree. Use it as a springboard. "Yeah, it's practically rocket fuel. I swear they brew it strong enough to keep the..." Whole of London awake, that little twist transforms boring small talk into playful connection. Here's another example from New York. Olivia, a woman in her 40s, was browsing in a bookstore. She turned to the man next to her and asked, "Have you read this author before?" Now, she wasn't looking for a book review, she was testing if he was approachable. The man smiled, replied, "Yeah, but fair warning, once you read one, you'll spend the next month hunting down the rest," and suddenly they were laughing together. That single question was her way of saying, "Notice me, engage with me." The mistake most men make is thinking small talk is just small talk. But in the hands of an older woman, it's a coded signal. She's saying, "I've opened the door a crack. Will you walk through or let it close? So here's your move." When she initiates with a question, expand it with playfulness, personality, and calm confidence. Show that you can take something ordinary and make it engaging. Because once you do, she knows instantly you're not just another man missing the signs. Sign 6. She finds excuses to be near you repeatedly. Patterns reveal everything. If an older woman shows up in your space more than once, it's not just coincidence, it's intention. She may not walk straight up and announce her interest, but she will find excuses to orbit you, to appear in your path, to create the illusion of accidental encounters. In Los Angeles, Michael noticed this at his gym. A woman in her late 30s kept ending up near him. First on the treadmill 2 spots down, then on the weight machine beside his, then stretching in the same area where he finished his set. At first, Michael thought nothing of it. But after the 3rd time, he realized she was intentionally placing herself where he could notice her. Finally, he turned, smiled, and said lightly, "We must be on the same workout plan today." She laughed instantly, and ice was broken. That's the beauty of this signal. She's not chasing you directly, but she's guiding you toward the opening. If you're sharp, you'll notice the pattern. If you're blind, you'll dismiss it as coincidence and another man will seize the opportunity. Why do older women use this tactic? Because repetition lowers risk. She can appear near you 2, 3, even 4 times without it being obvious. If you respond, she wins. If you don't, she hasn't lost anything. It's her way of saying, "I'm here, I'm giving you chances. Do you see me?" Here's a real-world story from Toronto. Daniel was at a local market browsing fruit. He noticed a woman who passed him in the aisle. A few minutes later, she reappeared, picking items just a few feet away. Then again, in another aisle. She was right there beside him, reaching for the same shelf. By the 3rd time, it was undeniable. Daniel finally said with a playful smile, "If you keep following me, I'm going to start charging rent." She laughed, responded with her own playful line, and the conversation flowed effortlessly. That encounter never would have happened if he hadn't recognized the repeated proximity. Most men miss this because they don't pay attention. They're lost in their phones, overthinking, or assuming it's just random. But here's the truth. Older women don't waste effort. If she engineers multiple encounters, it's deliberate. So here's your move. If you notice her near you more than once, don't wait for 5 or 6 repetitions. By the 2nd or 3rd time, acknowledge it with humor or a situational remark. Something light, confident, and natural. That's all it takes to flip her repeated proximity into a genuine interaction. The bottom line? Repetition is communication. If she keeps appearing near you, she's saying without words, "I want you to notice me. I want you to approach." The man who notices will win. The man who ignores will go home wondering why his nights are always empty. Sign 7, she compliments you subtly. Compliments from older women are never random. Unlike younger women who may toss out playful comments without much thought. An older woman's compliment is strategic. She's testing, signaling, and inviting you into a conversation without making herself vulnerable. Here's what most men miss. It's not about the words themselves. It's about the fact that she chose to say them. Imagine this. In London, Daniel was waiting for his train. A woman in her late 30s, stylish and confident, stood nearby. Out of nowhere, she smiled and said, "That's a nice jacket, it suits you." Now, Daniel could have brushed it off with a stiff, "Thanks," and looked away. But instead, he leaned into the moment. "Glad you said that. I nearly wore the ugly one today just to test if Londoners still had taste." She laughed. The ice melted, and suddenly it wasn't about the jacket anymore. It was about their shared humor, their instant connection. That's the key. A compliment is not just praise, it's an open door. She is saying, "I've noticed you, and I want you to notice me back." Older women know this game well. A woman in her 40s or 50s doesn't compliment a man unless she wants a response. And the compliment doesn't have to be about your appearance. It could be about your energy, your choice of words, or even something as small as "you're very polite." Take Michael in New York. He held the door open for a woman carrying groceries. She smiled and said, "You don't see manners like that anymore." Now, Michael could have just smiled and walked away, but instead he replied, "Maybe New York just needs a comeback tour for manners. I'm auditioning." That playful twist turned her subtle compliment into shared chemistry. The psychology here is simple. A compliment is low risk for her, but high reward if you respond well. If you ignore it or act awkward, she can retreat without embarrassment. But if you expand it, you show her you understand the signal. Men often underestimate how rare it is for a woman to compliment first. She's not doing it because she's bored, she's doing it because she wants to open the door without shoving it wide. So here's your move. Never kill the conversation with a flat thank you. Instead, amplify it. If she says, "That color looks good on you," tease lightly. "Glad to know I didn't waste 20 minutes arguing with the mirror." If she says, "You smell nice," respond with a smile. Careful? That's classified information. The goal isn't arrogance, it's playfulness. You're showing her that you caught the signal and can keep the dance going. The truth is, subtle compliments are like arrows aimed directly at you. An older woman doesn't waste them. If you ignore them, you'll miss one of the clearest signs she wants you to approach. Sign 8. She stays in the conversation longer than necessary. One of the strongest indicators of interest is time. Women don't linger around men they're not curious about. If she keeps the conversation alive when she could easily walk away, that's not chance, that's intention. Let's paint the picture. In Sydney, James bumped into a woman at a bookstore. He casually asked if she'd recommend the novel she was holding. She gave her thoughts, smiled, and could have left. But instead, she kept going, asking what kinds of books he liked, sharing her own favorites, circling back to the conversation even when it had natural endings. That's the sign. She was prolonging the moment because she wanted him to keep engaging. Older women especially don't waste time. They've got careers, responsibilities, and they're past the stage of entertaining endless small talk. So if she invests extra time in you asking follow-up questions, staying present when she could have excused herself, it's a signal you can't ignore. Think of Olivia in Toronto. She met a man at a cafe who commented on her laptop sticker. She laughed, explained the story, and instead of politely excusing herself, she kept leaning into the exchange. She asked about his work, his travels, his opinions. Every time the conversation could have ended, she added another thread. Why? Because she wanted him to take the hint, "I'm here. Keep going. Don't let this die." The psychology here is sharp. People naturally exit conversations that don't interest them. If she's staying, she's signaling approval. She's creating chances for you to escalate, to suggest sitting together, to exchange numbers, to move from small talk to something deeper. But here's where men fail. They overstay without leading. They let the conversation drag in circles until energy dies. Remember, she's giving you time because she wants you to take the next step. If you don't, she'll eventually feel like you're wasting her effort. So what should you do? When you notice she's lingering, acknowledge it subtly. If she keeps asking you questions, tease lightly. You're starting to sound like an interviewer should. "I expect a job offer at the end?" This makes her laugh and shows her you recognize the extended engagement. From there, transition. Listen, since we've already covered half of life's mysteries here, how about we continue this over coffee sometime? That's the move. Respect the fact that she's giving you extra time, then use it to take action. Here's the truth. Time is the most valuable resource anyone has, especially older women. If she's giving it to you when she could easily walk away, it's not politeness. It's not boredom. It's interest. Plain and simple. Sign 9, she uses touch as a signal. Touch is one of the most powerful, unmistakable signals an older woman can give. It cuts through words, through guesses, through hesitation. And when it comes from her, it's never random. Women, especially older women, are deeply aware of how much meaning even the smallest touch carries. A brush of the hand, a tap on the arm, a light squeeze on the shoulder. These are not accidents. They are deliberate cues. Think about it. In New York, Michael was chatting with a woman in her late 30s at a rooftop bar. They were standing close, talking about travel. when she laughed at his story and touched his forearm for just a moment. It wasn't a strong grip. It wasn't lingering, but it was intentional. That single touch changed everything. Michael's awareness sharpened. He knew instantly that she was signaling attraction. That one small movement said more than 10 minutes of polite conversation ever could. Here's the truth: older women don't waste touches. By the time she lays her hand on your arm, she has already decided she's comfortable with you. That's her way of bridging the gap, of inviting closeness without saying a word. Psychologically, touch is primal. It bypasses logic and hits emotion directly. Studies show that even a light touch on the arm creates a surge of connection and trust. Women know this instinctively. That's why, if she wants to be approached, she'll break the physical barrier first, carefully, lightly but meaningfully. Now, the mistake men make here is either ignoring the touch completely or overreacting. Ignoring it makes you seem clueless. Overreacting, leaning in too aggressively, escalating too fast, destroys the natural rhythm she's building. The right move is calm acknowledgement. If she taps your arm while laughing, smile, hold her eye contact a second longer, and continue the conversation with relaxed confidence. This shows her you noticed and you're comfortable in that moment. Here's another example, this time from London. James was at an art gallery. He struck up a conversation with a woman in her 40s who stood beside him studying a painting. As they shared thoughts, she leaned slightly closer, then touched his elbow when she emphasized her point. That touch was not about the painting, it was about him. James caught the signal, smiled, and leaned just slightly into her space. The dynamic shifted instantly. What started as casual small talk turned into genuine attraction, sparked by one subtle touch. Sometimes the touch is even more obvious. In Sydney, Daniel was introduced to a friend of a friend at a dinner party. Throughout the evening, she playfully tapped his shoulder when joking, brushed past him with light contact, and even adjusted his collar with a smile. These weren't accidents. They were deliberate signals, her way of saying, "I'm comfortable with you. I'm inviting you closer." So what's the best response? Mirror it naturally. If she taps your arm, later in the conversation, lightly touch her elbow to emphasize a point. If she brushes your shoulder, lean just slightly into her space. The key is not to force it, but to allow touch to flow naturally into the rhythm of the interaction. Here's the golden rule. Women, especially older women, don't touch men casually. If she's doing it, it's intentional. She's signaling interest, comfort, and openness, and your ability to recognize it without overplaying it is what separates confident men from the rest. The psychology is powerful. Touch collapses distance. It turns two strangers into two people sharing the same space, the same energy. And for a woman who wants to be approached, initiating touch is her way of saying, "I'm not just okay with you being here. I want you closer." Most men miss it because they're too caught up in what to say next. But the smartest men, they notice the touch, they mirror it calmly, and they let the interaction escalate naturally. So here's the takeaway. If an older woman touches you even lightly, don't dismiss it. Don't overthink it. Recognize it as the clear signal it is, because in that moment, she has already told you everything you need to know. She wants you to approach, and she wants you to lead the next step. Conclusion. So here's the truth. Older women rarely walk straight up and say, "Talk to me." Instead, they drop subtle, psychological hints, prolonged eye contact, playful smiles, positioning themselves near you, opening body language, small talk, engineered coincidences, exaggerated reactions, direct compliments, and lingering conversations. If you learn to read these signs, you'll have a power most men never develop, the ability to spot interest before anyone else does. And when you act on it with calm, masculine confidence, you'll find that older women are not only approachable, they're often more open, more playful, and more rewarding than you ever imagined. And with that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.